episode 2 of Rick and Morty just dropped like a deuce, and with it a ton of jokes and references you might have missed the first time around. Maybe you were snorting Calaxian crystals and didn't catch one of the jokes. Or maybe you're just dumb like Jerry. Either way, I'm Whitney Van Lanningham, and here's all the stuff you might have missed during your first watch through of The Old Man in the Seat. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our super nerd sponsor of the day, Some Assembly Required 75. Thanks to heroes like him, we're able to keep the lights on at Nerdwire another day. If you want to donate to our Patreon, just give a click on the link in the description box and see if a donation tier works for you. And speaking of links you can click, check out our TeePublic curation of t-shirts by clicking the link in the description box below. You'll get to see all the cool shirts that we picked out for you guys, including some really fun Rick and Morty ones. Now on to Rick and Morty! So, let's talk about all the amazing actors who lent their voices to this episode. Jeffrey Wright plays the shy pooper who just won't leave Rick's toilet alone, Tony. If the voice of the fly mobster's son reminds you of Bobby Hill, that's because that's a Pamela Adlon cameo. Kathleen Turner voices the wife of the Monogatron's leader. The leader himself is voiced by Sam Neill of Jurassic Park fame. Finally, the best cameo of all is Taika Waititi, aka Gluty, the pink blobular app developer. Man, that noise Gluty makes as he swirls away is so good.
Gluty-oo-doo!
Was that ever his thing?
No.
And speaking of celebrity cameos, we saw that Beth's soulmate on the Love Finders app ended up being Ted Danson. Love Finders, by the way, has an actual website that you can visit. While going to lovefinders.com with 2 R's and a Z won't actually find your soulmate in real life, it will present you with a different Rick and Morty quote every time you refresh the page. Also, if you scan the QR code on Rick's tin hat in the scene where he's trying to figure out who delivered the sandwich eaten by his toilet nemesis, the code links you to a shop where you can purchase the same tin hat for $15. But don't worry, this isn't like a Disneyland exit through the gift shop situation. 100% of the proceeds from the hat will be donated to Notes for Notes, a nonprofit organization that builds, equips, and staffs recording studios with instruments, recording gear, and more so that young people can create and record their own music for free. The studios go through the Boys and Girls Club, so if you want to do something nice for once in your miserable existence, buy one of those dumb hats and help the children. Also on that planet, we see that the delivery robot that Rick tries to interrogate has renamed himself from Delivery to Deliverance. While we're talking about quick background gags, the motel that Summer and her first Love Finders match go to is called the Blue Ball Motel. So maybe Beth was successful in intercepting the hookup? Also in Jerry's office, there are 2 notable posters. The first being Titanic, obviously a callback to the season 1 episode Rixie Business, where Jerry drags Beth to the Titanic to experience the romance for a date. The second poster is a callback to Jerry's crap golf game that even Meeseeks can't help him improve. Speaking of reasons why Jerry is the worst, let me play this quick clip for you. Listen close.
He's really putting you to work, huh?
Did you notice that? Toilet flush, then straight into the next room. Was there something missing? Yup. Jerry doesn't wash his hands after pooping. He just completely ignores the sink. Gross. On the opposite end of the bathroom etiquette spectrum, we have Rick coming in to end an age-old debate. Which way are you supposed to hang toilet paper? Rick hangs his toilet paper in the over position. Not only does the 1891 patent for toilet paper explicitly show that toilet paper was meant to go over, not under, but come on! Rick is the smartest being in the multiverse. If he says that's the way toilet paper should be, who are we to argue?
All right, everything resolved? Everybody nice and certain about their position in my world?
Yes. All right, so the post-credit scene had a couple blink and you'll miss it Easter eggs for us to uncover. When Jerry opens the fridge looking for Tapatio, we see 2 familiar objects. First, the butter passing robot from Something Wicked This Way Comes in season 1, and second, a photo of Morty's bully from the last episode on the back of a milk carton. Hate to solve this true crime for you, but he's not missing. He probably died from lack of oxygen when he floated up into the exosphere. We also need to talk about the meaning of Jerry's experience after swallowing globophan, the substance that Rick uses to suspend people in a dreamlike state while keeping them alive. At first I was like, why does Jerry want to be a water delivery guy? But then I went back and rewatched the scene where Rick explains this concoction to Tony. Globophan connects the whatever you want section of your brain with the whatever you have section. So for example, that's why Tony imagined himself in heaven with his wife doing some pooping. Tony wanted to be in heaven with his wife, and all he had was a toilet to poop on.
What are you waiting for? Aren't you gonna join us, Tony? Aren't you gonna join us in the poopin'?
So let's remember that Jerry had just been surrounded by Monogatrons whose main goal was to distract Earth with the Love Finders app in order to steal their water supply. All that talk about the value and importance of water must have subconsciously seeped into Jerry. That's why he imagines himself as a water delivery person. All Jerry wants is to be seen as important, competent, and accepted, and in this reality, he gets to deliver a life-giving substance to thirsty folks in need. It's a simple fantasy, but then again, Jerry's a simple man.
It's just part of my job, ma'am.
That's not the only part of the episode that tripped me up a little on the first watch through, though. I was totally clueless about what the deal was with Tony's wife. Was Tony lying about her being dead? Did Rick time travel and grab a version of Tony from earlier that day? If not, then why was she in his poop heaven fantasy? I was obviously totally wrong about my interpretation of that scene, but don't worry. When the smoke cleared, I realized that Rick didn't time travel in the same way that he did in the pilot episode. In that scene, he time traveled to a future dimension where they've invented a medication that can instantly heal broken legs to bring back to Morty. But true time travel hasn't been used by Rick or Morty since. Their jam is more like time bending. But in this scene, Rick doesn't pop into a different time. He portals to an alternate dimension where Tony's wife is still alive and he still chooses to poop in Rick's toilet. Sociopath Rick is just trying to disprove Tony's sob story so that he doesn't have to feel guilty for not letting a guy whose wife just died use his precious toilet. His point is that Tony didn't poop on Rick's throne out of sorrow, but because he's a goddamn toilet thief with no respect. Lastly, let's explain Rick's plotline throughout the episode, because unless you're a serious literary nerd, this one might have gone over your head as well. You know how this episode is called The Old Man in the Seat? Yeah, that's because it's a parody of The Old Man in the Sea, a short novel by Ernest Hemingway. The story tells the tale of a battle between an old crusty fisherman named Santiago and a large marlin. So it's kinda like Moby Dick, but the fish is slightly smaller and way easier to catch. That's why Santiago is the joke of the town. He's ridiculed constantly for being a bad fisherman, so he sets out to change his luck by catching the marlin to prove to his homies that he's still got it. Unfortunately, after catching the marlin is attacked and devoured by a swarm of sharks. He returns to the shore with nothing but the carcass to show for himself, despite wanting to be the one who brought the whole creature in himself. So, in this episode's metaphor, Tony is the marlin that Rick wants to conquer. The marlin in Hemingway's story is supposed to represent the ideal opponent for a wizened fisherman to get his groove back. Even though they're fighting each other to the death, Santiago feels lucky to be matched with a creature that he can respect.
Okay, who kills who? You have the right. I love and respect you very much. But before this day ends, I will kill you.
Rick likewise grows to respect Tony, especially after learning that their views on the universe aren't so different, and perhaps even develops sympathy for a fellow widower. And like Santiago has to deal with the fact that a bunch of dumb sharks ripped the flesh off the marlin till it was nothing but bones, Rick has to deal with his new frenemy Tony's sudden off-screen death. Instead of getting to drop off those chocolate laxatives and witness Tony's shame when he sees Rick's loathsome toilet holograms, Rick finds himself alone on the porcelain throne.
You need the same thing I needed, Rick. You need someone to give you permission to live.
Tony had it right, dude! He called it before Rick even made that hologram. Rick isn't really aiming any of those words at Tony. He's aiming them at himself. He values shy pooping because it's the only semblance of control he has in a universe that takes whatever it wants. Rick's got a lot of hurt up in that science brain. He respects Tony because Tony called him out on it. This plotline also seems to imply that a portion of Rick's depression comes from his wife's death. Someone that the chaotic universe stole away from Rick that he was powerless to save, despite everything he's capable of. I do also want to note that some people are theorizing that Rick's wife might be one of these women being suspended in a globophan hibernation, but I don't think that that's likely. The one human woman is a redhead, and Rick's wife has been shown to be a blonde, and the other blonde woman is actually an alien. But who knows? Maybe the blonde wife we saw in the Rick Shank Redemption was a complete fabrication, and this redhead woman is the reason why Summer has red hair. Or, complete curveball, that alien is his wife. Like maybe he's working on gene splicing to regenerate her? That said, I do think it's unlikely that a man who has a whole planet dedicated to pooping keeps his late wife's coma corpse in a room full of randos. But let me know your theories in the comments. Those are some of the things that I missed the first time I watched Season 4, Episode 2 of Rick and Morty, but I want to know if there's anything else I left out. Like and subscribe to Nerdwire, and remember, buy Rick's dumb tin hat! The proceeds from your purchase could help a real-life Morty in need get swifty.